Welcome to the Father Strong podcast, dedicated to empowering fathers to build stronger families and communities. Each week, we bring you conversations with experts, everyday dads, and community leaders who share their wisdom and experiences to help you become the father your children need. Whether you're a new dad just starting out, a seasoned father facing new challenges, or someone who mentors and supports fathers in your community, you'll find practical advice, heartfelt stories, and evidence-based strategies to strengthen your fathering journey. This week's episode is a special combination of a number of our past podcasts from some top professionals in their fields. If you missed any of them, you're in luck, since we took some impactful moments and put them together just for you. So sit back and enjoy this week's special edition of the Fathering Strong podcast. Welcome to the special edition of the Fathering Strong podcast. I'm Bruce Stapleton, and today we're going to bring you something unique, a compilation of some powerful voices and insights from some of the most impactful conversations about fatherhood. Over the past few months, Pastor Eli has had the privilege of speaking with some remarkable individuals who've shared their wisdom, struggles, and triumphs as fathers and advocates for strong families. Today, we're going to be weaving together their stories to create a tapestry of fatherhood that speaks to the heart of what it means to be a dad in today's world. You can watch each of these full episodes that we're going to be highlighting today on YouTube, or listen to them on Apple Podcast, and you'll find a link to each of these episodes in the description. Let's begin with the foundation. Understand what children truly need from their fathers. Barbara Coloroso, internationally recognized speaker and author, shared some profound insights about the daily messages every child needs to hear.
If we can remember, as moms and especially as fathers, that every kid needs 6 critical life messages every day, and the way you express them will be uniquely yours to each one of your children in a very unique way. I believe in you. I trust in you. I know you can handle this. You're listened to. You're cared for. And you're very important to me. Fathers are often very busy, at often just making sure there's food on the table, and living through their own adult issues from their own families. And I have to say, we as moms need to be very aware that we need to give that space to dads and be inviting with them. Parenting is not an efficient profession. It takes lots of time. And I'm not talking that quality time we read about in the magazines. You know, we say, oh, we're going to go to the zoo. And the kid says, I don't want to go to the zoo. We're going to the zoo and you're going to have a good time. And no, you cannot invite your friends. This is quality time with your dad. No, that's not it. It's those moments. It doesn't have to be anything big. It's moments in their lives.
Being a father isn't always easy. Many men face significant challenges that can impact their ability to be the fathers they want to be. James McDonald, who has spent decades working in the mental health and founded Forever Dads, helped us to understand the struggles many fathers encounter.
Fathering is stressful for a healthy person. Relationships with a woman in a marriage or whatever the relationship might be with the mother is even more challenging than fathering in terms of sustaining that. So there are natural forces that impact connectivity in the human space, because we're just inclined towards selfishness, and we're inclined towards seeking pleasure, and we're inclined to be protective or defensive, and none of those bode well for connectivity, as we are social animals and we get our needs met by connecting with others. A lot of people are floundering because they didn't have a model, or they grew up in trauma or saw dysfunction. So it's not a fault. It's just birthed out of not having the kind of environment that spawns growth and success in terms of self-regulation and connecting with other people.
James also helped us understand one of the biggest barriers preventing fathers from getting the help they need.
The most debilitating emotion for women is anxiety. The most debilitating emotion for men is shame. So in the development of our lives, this is where that comes from. Women are mothers often, and before they're mothers, they're expecting. They're pregnant 9 months before the child comes. So they are thinking about that and anticipating that early on. Anxiety is a futuristic emotion. For a guy, because guys, at least historically, were bigger, stronger. They were, in the early days, the hunters and the fighters and the defenders. So you didn't know when you're going around the corner whether you're going to face a tiger or a bear or what you might face, but you had to do it with strength. And you couldn't be vulnerable. So men can't show vulnerability and what we perceive as weakness because we have to fight and kill and hunt and protect. So here's the way that plays itself out in a doctor's office. A woman goes to the doctor's office. The doctor says, why are you here? What's wrong? And the lady will, for 5 minutes, say, I'm having hot flashes, I can't sleep, I got this and that, and just go on and describe what's going on because they have anxiety about what this is and want a solution, right? So they will describe what's up and try to get help with it. Men, you go to the doctor's office, a doctor says, what's wrong? I'm all right. She sent me. All right. So you get this, I can't be vulnerable. I can't. So if you put a sign up, help, if you need help, walk in here. Men aren't going in there.
Despite these challenges, we've also heard from fathers who found ways to overcome obstacles and create meaningful relationships with their children. Peter Lawson Jones, an attorney, actor, and former legislator who helped create the Ohio Commission on Fatherhood, shared what brought him in the most joy as a parent.
Let me say this, most relationships require some degree of reciprocity. But I found with my parents and my 3 kids in particular, that bond that's established from the outset, I had the good fortune of cutting all 3 of their umbilical cords. And from that moment on, there's been nothing but joy. Certainly, I've reveled in their successes, their graduations from college and grad school, their launching into their careers. But there's small moments. I could think of the trips where it was just Ryan and me, or just Leah and me, or Evan and me, and the joyous experience and times that we shared together, bonding, becoming even closer as parent and child. I can remember they had one event, and at that event, the fathers offered tributes to their sons, and the sons offered tributes to their dads. And I remember, specifically Ryan saying, when I grow up, I want to be the kind of father that my dad is. I've seen how he is, not just with me, but with my brother and with my sister. I want to emulate that.
One of the most significant challenges facing many fathers today is substance abuse. Ted Strader, who spent over 35 years developing evidence-based programs for substance abuse prevention and family strengthening, shared his insights on this critical issue.
How many millions do you think are suffering from the pain of losing their father or living with an absent father, or a father who's impaired with substance use disorder. So children that come from families with a missing parent sometimes can see, well, gosh, my dad was in prison. But do they know that it could have been substance use related? Do they know that they may have a family history of addiction? Do you realize that people who grow up fatherless are more likely to suffer from addiction? So people who have grown up with fatherlessness, and they have a known history of substance abuse disorder in their family are at tremendous risk for both fatherlessness, being fatherless, being non-present fathers in their families physically and or emotionally, and they're more likely to experience the problem of addiction in their own life. So it's a double whammy.
Ted's expertise comes not just from his professional work, but from his own personal journey as a father who grew up without a father present.
My first memory of my father is my sister dragging me behind the couch and saying, "Big Jim's coming." And she was scared. And I thought, well, I guess I'm scared with you. So she took me behind the couch and we heard a loud voice enter the house and a conversation go on that seemed rather normal to me. And then he left. And then she said, "That's Dad. He was visiting." And she was scared because of her past experience. And I didn't have a lot of experience at all. Then I had a few subsequent meetings over the years, but really didn't get to know my father till I was, about 21 or 22 after I'd begun teaching high school. I had enough money. I had the summer off. I said, I'm going to go find my dad and see why he never was in my life and what's the story here and what's going on. Kind of like I needed to know where I came from. So I found him in Florida. I got on an airplane, flew down, met him, and it was weird and wild and interesting and fun and painful. And it started a big lifelong relationship that never was very fulfilling on the receiving end, but it was fulfilling enough for me to understand how he got where he was, why I was where I was in my life. And because of my own resilience, I guess I was able to forgive him for not being there for me, able to forgive him for some of the pain I saw him cause for other people in my family. And
Ted's experience as a stepfather to 4 daughters taught him valuable lessons about the challenges of parenting.
I think what challenged me most is staying in touch with that compassionate part of me when I'm frustrated, overwhelmed, anxious, nervous, scared, or angry. I mean, parenting is probably the hardest job on the planet. I've written several parenting curriculums, fatherhood programs, marriage programs, trauma programs, and parenting is the toughest job on the planet as far as I'm concerned because you care so deeply. So all your emotions are engaged at a high level of intensity. So the pain is at a high level of intensity. The fears are high level of intensity. The angst, the worry, the concern, and if you've got some issues with your emotional upbringing or development, you're going to be challenged, and you're going to be challenged wholeheartedly when you care wholeheartedly. So I think the greatest challenge is to stay in touch with my compassion and understanding the other person or the other people and understanding what they're feeling.
Sometimes fathers must help their children navigate through profound loss and grief. Barbara Coloroso shared wisdom about supporting children through these difficult times.
In Judaism, when they are sitting in grieving, they have a very good philosophy, and that is that you be present to the person grieving and let them talk first, because then you'll know what they need. They might want to talk about good times about the person who died, wonderful things about that person. They may want to vent their anger at this horrific tragedy, the frustration about it. So just to sit down with and say, I'm here. Because there are basically 3 passages all of us will go through during this time. The first is the oh no of it all. In fact, very often kids will be saying, oh no, they just want to wake up from the nightmare. They can't believe it really happened. That passage usually lasts about 7 days. Because that's about the ancients knew 7 days. Then after the first passage, it's the intense sorrow. that sorrow can last 6 months to 2 years, where everything is still cold. The third is 6 months to 2 years is sadness that is tempered with joy with getting on with your own life. And you think, whew, got through that. Nah, a song can bring it back. A graduation can bring it back. A birthday that's not happening can bring it back. But one young boy who had leukemia and then had it come back, he said to his dad, "Will there be joy again?" He said there was joy and that sadness when you were finally in remission. We're here for the next joy too. It's being that optimist that there will be joy in the morning.
The impact of a positive role model cannot be overstated. Peter Lawson Jones reflected on the foundation his own parents provided.
Let me say that the first blessing I received was to have the parents that I had, Charles Whitman Jones and Margaret Diane Jones. To this day, they're now of a blessed memory, but they continue to be my primary hero and shero. So I was very fortunate in that respect that I didn't have to pick up a newspaper, read a book, or look on TV or listen to the radio to find great role models. I had them right in my home. My parents, I always say this, when it comes to my folks, anything good I've done in life, I owe it to them. Anything bad, I figured that out all by myself. There's absolutely no question about that. I mean, of all the things I've done in life, I think one of the things I've been most effective as, and I know this from my feedback, what my kids have said to me, my 3 children, and I think if I've done anything well in life, I've been a good, along with my wife, we've been good parents, very, very good parents. And where did I acquire my parenting skills? From watching my dad, from watching my mom.
James McDonald shared a powerful perspective on the internal struggles every man faces and how faith and community can provide strength.
There is a good guy in here, and there's a bad guy in here. There is a guy with the capacity to do really good things. There's a guy in here with the capacity to do really bad things. And so which one of those guys is going to dominate? And that's a battle, Eli, that I have every day. Every day. Those two forces are always competing in my life. I have discovered this. And there are other ways that people deal with that good guy, bad guy in themselves. But what my parents introduced me to was church. And there are 3 or 4 or 5, maybe even more things that church gave me an advantage in managing these 2 people. One is that I would go to church and I would hear, with all the flaws in church, this is not necessarily trying to put this on anybody, but there was always a sermon with a guy who is appealing to that good guy. All right, and so I'm listening to that guy speak and reinforce that side of me that wants to do the right thing. The second reason is accountability. There's an accountability that I discovered, and people discover accountability in a variety of forces, at work, at AA, at various groups. The way church gave that to me, Eli, was I teach Sunday school, right? So I teach these 7th grade kids about stuff. I discovered this. Whenever I mess up on Saturday or in the week or do something to that wrong guy, it really impacts my connection with these kids.
For fathers who are struggling and need encouragement, Peter Lawson Jones offered words of hope and practical wisdom.
The first thing I would do is offer some words of comfort that being a parent does involve struggle and challenge. So you aren't alone in that respect. And whenever you have questions, reach out to somebody who you know has had this experience, has gone through, gotten to the other side. They've got great kids, and just network with them and draw from them some of their wisdom and their thoughts and how they operated in a way and how they got over, as we say in church, how I got over. Because on the other side of the struggle is extraordinary reward. And what you want, what's more important than anything, is to reach that point where your child feels about you the way I do about my dad and about my mom, or the way my kids feel about my wife, Lisa, and me. That's the reward. And there is no better reward. There isn't. There is no amount of money that's better than that. There is no house that's more grand than that. There is no professional accomplishment that means more than that. When you hear your kids say, I want to be like you, you're my role model, you're my hero.
Barbara Coloroso emphasized the critical importance of truly being present with our children.
When a child walks in and you say, you're busy on your computer, or you're busy doing some kind of woodwork, or you're cleaning up a mess, and you say, how's your day, kid? And he goes, fine. This is not fine. But if you're too busy to notice what he's saying to you without the words, we have to remember we speak 5 ways: our bodies, our face, our eyes, our tone of voice, and what we actually say. Only 20% of what you and I, as mothers and fathers, communicate to kids is done with words. The other 80% is what we're doing when those words are being spoken or not spoken. It's like a little 3rd grade boy had a teacher who didn't like 3rd grade boys. Kid nailed her on and said, you don't like 3rd grade boys. The teacher looked down and said, that's not true. I like 3rd grade boys. And the kid looked back up and said, would you tell your face that then? So as fathers, what is your face saying? When you say, how was your day? Are you really tuned in to watching that body that's speaking something besides fine?
Ted Strader shared some insight about helping children who have witnessed trauma or difficult family situations.
Those are the guys that I told you I served 2,500 men coming out of prison drug treatment programs and recovery to work with their families and children and families. So that's something I've done a whole lot of. And what I recommend is they take our Creating Lasting Family Connections 3-part program where they look at themselves, the men alone. Let's take a look at your relationship skills and let's ramp them up. A guy coming out of prison who's had substance use disorder takes our classes for 15 weeks in a row, 1.5 to 2 hours each week for 15 weeks, looks like a different person when he goes home and says, honey, I'd like you all to join me in a program that's really helping me grow. Can you see how I'm changing? Can you see how my behavior has changed in the last 15 weeks? Are you willing to take another chance on me? Because I know how I've let you down in the past. Think of a child who's growing up with addiction and disappointment after disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And then all of a sudden he sees a change. That is a huge message of hope. Still full of anger, still full of pain, but there is a hopeful message that can come. And that hope can move that child to start looking. And then we can professionally bridge them toward mutual understanding and forgiveness. And the father will have led the charge. Go from scapegoat to hero by making a positive change.
Peter Lawson Jones shared a touching story about the lasting impact of being present for his children.
My son has followed a family tradition that he would not have followed if he and I weren't close. And that is giving as the middle name to his son, his firstborn, my first name. That's become a little family tradition with us. And I cried when I walked into that hospital room because we didn't know the gender of the child. We didn't know what the child looked like. We knew that they had picked out names if it was a boy, if it was a girl. But when I walked in, they say, we want to present to you our your grandson, And his name is, and we're following the tradition you have in your family. His name is Jordan Peter Jones. It doesn't get better than that. Winning the Super Bowl is not better than that. Winning the World Series, slam dunking on LeBron James, not better than this.
Barbara Coloroso shared wisdom about the importance of flexibility and communication between parents.
I remember once my daughter came running in, our oldest, and she said, "Mom, Dad said I couldn't roller skate." It was skates and not blades. Roller skate in our cul-de-sac. We lived in a cul-de-sac where there was only one entrance and people had to stop at that, a stop sign. So it was safe for them to be playing in the street, right? And she had asked her dad if she could go with her friend and roller skate. And he said no. And we had a thing as parents that whoever you ask first, the second one will back them up. But I was curious. And I said, so right now you can't, but I'm going to talk to your dad and see his reasoning because he must have a reason. And when we talked it over, we sat down with her and we said, Anna, when you go to Grandma and Grandpa's house in Denver, do you play in the street? She said, oh, no, we'd get run over because it's a very busy street outside Grandma and Grandpa's house. And Dawn said, that's why I said no so quickly. I didn't think about the situation we're in now. I thought about my...
As we conclude this special compilation, let's remember the wisdom shared by Ted Strader about what he's learned from fathers he's worked with over the years.
I can tell you that if I'm sharing any knowledge and skills, because I've learned from every father I ever worked with: compassion, patience, listening better. You can tell when somebody's not listened to, they get pretty angry or they leave. So, and sometimes when you're so smart, we're talking instead of listening. And you cue me up to talk all the time, and I smile, and I'm laughing because my clients don't always want me doing all the talking. Sometimes they need to start first. Mostly they do. It's like people don't really care that much what you have to say until they know how much you care and that you're willing to listen. And that's a lesson. That's a real big lesson I've learned many times, and I'll probably need to learn it again. Stay humble.
The voices we've heard today represent decades of experience, research, and most importantly, love for children and families. Whether you're a father who's struggling or who's thriving or somewhere in between, remember that fatherhood is a journey, not a destination. Every day offers new opportunities to connect with their children and show them they matter, and to be the father they need for you to be. As Peter Lawson Jones reminded us, there's no greater reward than hearing your child say they want to be like you. As Barbara Coloroso taught us, children need to hear those 6 critical messages every day. And as James McDonald showed us, even our struggles can become sources of strength when we face them with courage and community. And as Ted Strader demonstrated, our past doesn't have to define our future as fathers. So thank you for joining us for this compilation of episodes from Fathering Strong. And remember, as Pastor Eli always reminds us, you have the power to give your child what no one else can give, and that's your fully developed father love. Until next time, keep fathering strong.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Fathering Strong podcast. We hope you found the conversation inspiring and helpful. To make sure you don't miss out on future episodes, subscribe to the Fathering Strong podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts. Just search for Fathering Strong in your favorite app. The Fathering Strong podcast is brought to you by Urban Light Ministries, a nonprofit organization with a 3-decade legacy dedicated to turning the hearts of fathers to their children. Thanks to your support, we're able to keep this podcast and many other resources free for dads everywhere. To learn more about Urban Light Ministries or to donate and help us continue this important work, visit urbanlight.org. The Fathering Strong podcast is a production of Urban Light Ministries. Eli Williams is your host, and Bruce Stapleton of the Movementum Group is the producer and engineer. Our theme music is provided by saxophonist Harold Rayford.